Hi everybody, welcome to yet another webinar, this time on a Thursday. Yeah, and lovely, 38 people on board already, this is brilliant, it's great. We've got a lot to get through today and I'm going to try and swap the keyboards over again, so let's put you on a slightly different view there before I forget. I hope and trust everybody is okay out there. Let me just put the comments up so I can... there we go. Now, we were going to have a guest on today. We'd done a couple of tests this morning and his sound is perfect, except he's got this echo on that keeps repeating itself. So we're not going to risk it today. But James, who runs two very, very good arranger keyboard Facebook pages, and if you haven't been to them, I would urge you to go to them. And during the course of the webinar, I think James is going to put the links in the comments. So we're trying to work together, and obviously we've had some questions today from some of his Facebook followers, and I've had questions from my people as well. So we have got a lot to get through. We're going to do Genos first. If you don't own a Genos, please bear with us, because actually a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I can reference both keyboards at the same time. But obviously there's some specific button pushing for which we need the individual keyboards. I'm going to, before we sort of delve into the questions, I'm just going to cover something which I think is important, and forgive me if I keep going on about this, but when you look at modern arranger keyboards, we know that it's a big enough battle as it is learning to play, read the music, play the right notes, press the right buttons, etc. But increasingly with this technology, it's a larger percentage of what you're learning needs to be about the actual instrument you're playing. Because without that command of the instrument, it doesn't matter how good a player you are, you can be made to sound very average if you're not doing the right things with the keyboard. So maybe it's not the most exciting part of learning for many of you, but I do feel that if you can commit a good few hours to actually trying to understand, not everything. I don't know everything about Genos. I don't know everything about Korg, purely because I don't need to know everything about it. I don't use everything on either keyboard. That's another thing. You know, don't think, well, it's there, I've got to use it. Maybe your style of playing, your particular taste in music, don't require that to be used. So always bear that in mind as well. But if you have a good basic understanding, you need to reach a point where you're not battling with the keyboard. If you're at ease with what's in front of you, the rest of it will come a lot easier. So, we've already had some questions come in on the comment. Let me just have a quick refresh. And anybody who said good afternoon to me, good afternoon back. Sorry I can't mention you all personally. Yeah, we've had some questions about the ensemble voices, which I wasn't going to do, but that seems to have cropped up. Just some general... there's a question there from Arizona saying, how long did it take you to master the Genos 2 and the PA5X and become an expert? Well, whether I'm an expert or not, I don't know, because there's always people who know more than you as an individual. I'm reasonably knowledgeable about both, which is why maybe I'm here talking to you good people. But it's difficult to say, because I've grown up with different models of PA. So by the time PA5X came out, yes, it's different, but I'm already mainly sort of 70% familiar with it. When Genos 2 came out, I'd had experience on Tyros and then Genos 1. So it's not such a big stepping stone. And I'm sure many of you out there have worked your way through keyboards. It's a matter of learning the new positioning of the buttons sometimes, a little bit of new terminology, and one or two new features that come along. But I find, and with all due respect to anybody who writes the owner's manuals for any of these products, I learn more by just sitting there and pressing buttons and finding out what happens. You cannot damage these things, and the great thing about digital instruments is, you know, you get yourself in a mess with the sounds. All you need to do is choose a new style and it will automatically load up the correct sounds, and away you go. Unless you save something, just come out of it, go into something else, and that mess that you've made has gone forever and a day. So never worry about pressing buttons and, oh, I'm going to break it. No, you're not. And it's probably one of the best ways to learn. Now, if I may just crack on with the questions that have come in advance of the webinar, because I think that's probably the fairest way to do it, and then I'll go back to the ensemble voices before we leave Genos. The first one was a comment from somebody. Excuse me looking over there, I'm just trying to read my sort of scribbly writing that I've written down there. First question came in from somebody, and he said, I'm not that keen on all the one-touch settings. Well, my simple answer to that is no, you're probably not, because one-touch settings, they're done by professional people, and I have to say, genuinely, I think Yamaha do it better than anybody, because they put a lot more time and effort, and they actually, I believe, have a dedicated team just to put these one-touch settings in. So what's there is great, but it's not going to suit each and every person, and it's not going to suit every single piece you play. So let's just take an example. I'm going to go where I don't normally go, into maybe the country. I don't know, let's go country songwriter. To be honest, I don't even know what that style is. It's not one I use very often, but we can worry about that in a second. The easiest way is to just, with the home screen on, flick through the one-touch settings, and you will visibly see what sounds are on in each one. So harmonica in number 1, got a mixture of guitars there in number 2, we've got the character grand in number 3, and I've got Cajun accordion in number 4. So let's, just as an example, say I don't want that Cajun accordion, I'd like an electric piano there instead. So how do we do it? Well, whilst we're on one-touch setting 4, the easiest thing to do is just touch where it says Cajun accordion, go to electric piano, and it really, honestly, for the sakes of today, it doesn't matter which one I pick. That's fine. That'll work for me. So we exit, we've got it there. This is how simple it is to save it now. You press the memory button and you hit button 4, which is where you want that sound to go in. The little pop-up screen comes up. One-touch setting data has changed. If you select another style without executing save, your data will be lost. Save? Question mark. Yes, we do want to save. So we say yes. It automatically guides you to your user section, and that's where we can save. You can't save in factory areas, and we'll look at the pads in a minute. You can't save into the factory area. You can only save into user areas. So I'm going to say yes, save here. And again, for quickness, I'll just call it country songwriter, and I'm going to put a 1 on the end. Okay, and that is it. We now have our own version of country songwriter, but we don't access it through the factory styles. We access it through the user styles. So if I go back into preset, and we go to country, and we go to country songwriter. So this is loaded up the original, and yes, in number 4 is Cajun accordion. We won't lose that original bank. That's another fear that people have. Well, if I change it, and I do want to use that Cajun accordion in the future, have I lost it? No, you haven't. It's still there. Now if we press the style part of the panel, and we go into user, we can work through our user sounds here, and there it is, Country Songwriter 1. We press that and we exit, and now let's have a look. In number 4 we've got 70s Suitcase Ballad. So it's ever so easy to make up your own versions of one touch settings, and I would encourage you to do it, because that particular style, country songwriter, you might want to use that for 2 or 3 different songs, but you don't always want to use the same 4 set of sounds. Now, of course, you could create registration memories, but actually, if you're only going to need 4 sounds, why not just make your own version of the factory with the 4 one-touch settings, but put what you want in the one-touch settings. The other bit of advice I can give you is that you can make a lot more of 4 one-touch settings than I've just done there, because what I could do in number 4, I didn't pay any attention to what was in right 2 and right 3. Had I done so, I might have said, well, in there, yeah, I might want to swap to the resonator guitar at some point, and in here, I wouldn't mind the Celtic violin. Now, when you do that save, although these sections are not actually active at the moment, it will remember the settings that are in those sections. Why would I do that? Because then I've got a lot more than 4 settings available to me. I could go to number 4, and by using the part on off, either with the buttons or on the screen, I can have a lot more variation in sound here. You know, I can have any mixture of any 2 of them, any 3, all 3 of them. I can have those 2. I could just have the middle one on. So actually, we can probably get 8 or 10 combinations out of that one button. You multiply that by the 4. Why? You could then ask the question, why do I need to put all these in here? But I think that's just a very quick way of saving your own settings. Now, I said about the pads, and somebody said, how do you use the pads? Well, the pads are like, just think of them as an extra addition to the style, because they will sync in tempo with your style. If it's a particular pad like a guitar strum or something, it will follow the chords that you play, so it will always play the right notes. But do you realise that you can have a different set of pads loaded for each of those 4 variations? Now, I did prepare one a little bit earlier, and I'm trying to think where I put it. Yeah, Easy Southern Pop 1. I'll select that. So this is my version of it. And I've gone through. I changed the sound in number 4 to Celtic violin instead of, I can't think what was there in the first place. But if you notice on the pads here, the pads change from one-touch setting 3 to one-touch setting 4. So again, the flexibility of these 4 buttons is actually, it's immense. You know, if you give a bit of thought to the sounds you're not using, and give a bit of thought to putting some different pads in there, actually everything you're ever going to want for most tunes can be put in those 4 buttons. And you saw how simple it was. You make all your changes. Well, you make your changes. You have to do 1 button at a time, by the way. You can't change. There's no way of changing easily all 4. What I do is I change button 1 if I need to. Might not need to change the sound. I might just need to put a different set of pads there. Memory, and press the button and go through the save procedure. Then I go to button 2, go to the save procedure again, and obviously it just keeps updating it all the way through. Of course, you can set volume levels as well in the one-touch settings. So if what Yamaha have given you, you thought, oh, you know, the drums are a bit loud or whatever, go into the mixer, which is the next thing I'm actually going to look at now. So I hope that's clear. And I hope that's probably encouraged you that one touch settings and your own versions of one touch settings can be an incredibly powerful tool on Yamaha Genos and Genos 2. The mixer, yeah, I think this is the biggest friend you've got on any keyboard. Now I'm talking about Korg PA, I'm talking about Genos, I'm talking about SX series, I'm talking about smaller PAs. When we're looking at putting sounds together, just to put two sounds on, well, that's great because that's more adventurous than just using one sound. But actually, that's only half the battle. The real crux comes in actually mixing those two sounds together properly. So, if we press mixer on Genos, which incidentally, when we go to Korg later, where is the button for Korg? It's in the same place. It's, you know, down at the bottom of the screen. So there are a lot of similarities, despite what people say. There's a lot of similarities between these products here. So I'm going to go to mixer. Now, for simplicity today, I'm going to say to you that the two most important tabs at the top that you need to learn are panel and style. They're the ones you will use a lot of the time. We will cover the others on another webinar. Panel, just basically think of your main voices on the Genos. We can see we've got volume levels for the left voice, right 1, right 2, right 3, and we've got our visible controls there. Yes, we've got them over here, duplicated, but I'm going to just mention a little thing about those in just a second. We also have on this page, which is really important, an overall volume for the style. Now, you'll see in a minute, using the style tab, we can individually alter the volume of every part of the style. But when we come to the panel, we've got an overall volume. So that means a balance between that hand and your left hand, and that is really, really important. So when you move this style volume up and down, the different volumes of all the parts stay relative, but the whole thing comes down, but they stay relative to each other, if that makes sense. We've also got volumes for multipad, and if we were using any songs, we've got that. So it's really, really important. Now, when I'm setting a sound up, and this is only me, but I think there's a lot of people feel the same, I will tend to use this screen rather than just the sliders over here. I find this more visual because I can see the type of sound that's on there. I can see the panning, and I can see the volume relative to everything else. And here's the other thing. I'm going to do something now. I'm just going to reset that. And I'm going to go back into Mixer here. Sometimes you might get to a situation where the volume, for instance, there on right 1 is showing us 99. And I look over here, yeah, right 1 is 99. But look where my physical slider is. It's right down at the bottom. So you think, oh, I could do with that just a little bit louder. I'll move it up in volume. You move this. And most people panic then because nothing's happening here. But they do actually work in tandem because, look, if I was to choose that, as I'm pulling that up and down, can you see the lights? Oops, sorry. If I do it with a wheel, it's easier. Can you see the lights going up and down here? So that's working with that. And the actual graphic of the slider itself moves up and down. But of course, the physical slider doesn't. It stays where it is. Now, that is because it has a feature called catch. That means that slider will do nothing until it catches the top of the lights, or that volume setting, in other words, of 92. Minute I go up past that, look what happens. That slider now controls this slider. But there are many times where the physical sliders are not going to be in the same position as the lights. So you have to make a quick adjustment. You have to understand that you, well, here's another example, right 3. If I look in the screen, I'll switch it on, not that it matters, but it's set at 100. But my physical slider is right down. So I've got to take it up past 100. Now it's active. So that's why I tend to, when I'm setting something up and I want absolute fine control over everything, I will tend to use the sliders there. The other reason I think the mixer is important is when we go to the Style tab. And now we can see, first of all, the individual parts. Yeah, David's just said actually that they could fix this by introducing motorized sliders, and Yamaha do have motorized sliders on some of their top-end standalone mixers. But the problem is they had them on organs years ago, but the problem is the little motors are prone to wearing out eventually, and also you're going to get motors and sliders going up and down all the time every time you change something. So I understand why they've probably not done that, but I also take your point as well, David. So when we're on the Style tab, we've got total control now over the whole style. And how many times have you sort of put a style on and there might be one little bit of that style that just doesn't fit the tune that you're playing? Let me see if I can give another example. I'm going to go back into the preset styles. I'm just going to go to big band swing for a minute. What the style I choose is irrelevant. It's what I'm going to tell you about it. So I'm going to go into the mixer, and I'm on the Style tab, so I can see graphically an image of the sort of sound that's in there. I'm going to go on to variation 4 and just try it for a second. Now I'm going to go back to variation 1. Now I like variation 1 because I could play anything to that because I haven't got all that brass going. So the brass is fine if you're doing a big band number, but if you were just playing a normal swing and you didn't want as much brass as that, dead easy, look, let's just knock the brass out. We just change it from green to grey it out, or you could pull the volumes down, but it's easier to just mute it. Now when I go to variation 4, okay, but somebody can say, well, that's the same as variation 1. What I might do on variation 4, let's just bring in chord 2 maybe. Now what that's done, to me, I'll use the phrase, it's opened the style up, that it's left a lot more room for me to actually play, but I've still got a little bit of brass in there as well. Yeah, Sue's saying sometimes the bass lines change. Yes, they do, purposely, because if you listen to if you took a jazz swing number, often the bass would just play a couple of beats in the bar during the verse, and then they'll probably go to 4 beats in the bar for the chorus, and it gives everything a lift. But you know, I can do all sorts of things. I could just change the drum kit, and I can do it simply through the mixer. I just press on the picture of the drum kit, and I'm going to say, do you know what? Instead of the jazz stick kit, I'm going to put the jazz brush kit in. It's changed it, and it's all done through that mixer section there. You could change the guitar sound, but here's one thing to watch for, and that's why I've chosen this style. I could press that little picture. It's actually using a mega voice, which are unique voices just for styles. So we have to be very careful here. We can't necessarily go back into just the ordinary sounds. So we need to keep it on a mega voice, but maybe I'll go to a nylon guitar. can't really hear that very much, but let's put that, and let's put the volume up. Let's take the trombones down. So I've changed it from an electric jazz guitar to an acoustic guitar. It's given it a different feel, and it's all done through the mixer. Okay, so we've covered one-touch settings, we've covered balancing sounds, and this is the easiest way to make a new style up. And this isn't me saying they've programmed it wrong. That is not what I'm saying at all. They've programmed a style which is fantastic, and it might fit 60% of the pieces you use it for, but you might suddenly find that you're playing something and you think, the brass phrasing is clashing with what I'm playing. And that may well happen. Like I said, that's not the style programmer's fault, and it's not your fault. It's just the combination of that style with that particular tune. But if you understand mixer and you're confident to go in... Now, I've messed about with it, I've changed it, but I'm not saving it. So if I just exit and I reload Big Band Swing, all of those changes are gone. I haven't caused any damage to the keyboard, but I would experiment and save some of these variations of the style in your one-touch settings. And again, it comes back to the power of those 4 little buttons there, because most people think this is just about what Yamaha have given you. Well, yes, it is, but it's also about what you can make of it for your own use there as well. Okay, and we've looked at the little bit about the sliders and why people say sometimes, oh, the sliders don't work. You must use the catch feature and actually catch up with the lights there. Okay, onwards and upwards. Somebody else asked me, when you're mixing sounds together, they said sometimes it doesn't sound right. And this will be relevant when we come to look at trying to use the ensemble voices as well. I could mix 3 sounds together, then depending where I play on the keyboard, some of the sounds might not sound right. Let me see if I can give you an example. Let's just do this completely from scratch. In there, I'm going to use some strings. Doesn't matter what strings we use. That's fine. Okay, and I can get away with strings virtually all over the keyboard. But in right 2, I'm going to put, for example, where are we? I'll put an oboe. Listen to how squeaky that oboe has gone when we've gone up here, because we're playing the oboe in the wrong octave. So this is why I come back to what I said earlier. Mixing 2 sounds together, that's part of it. It's the refinements you then do in terms of volume balance and the next bit. I need to alter the octave of an individual sound, and I think this is what the gentleman's question was about. Over here, I've almost just got it on. There is an upper octave plus a minus button over here on Genos. And you think, oh, that's great, because I'll take that down an octave. And now my oboe sounds okay just there, but the problem is you've also took the strings down an octave as well. So let me reset that. How would I alter? Well, you can go into menu, and you can go into menu 2, and you can go to voice setting. And here, under tune, you can see that the octave for all those right hand voices is set to 0, and I can alter it in there. Personally, I love this screen here when you press voice, and the reason I like this is that I can see everything I need to see on one screen. I can see which sections are active, I can see the volume of every section, I can see the pan on every section. Now, in the middle, on the left-hand side underneath each voice, it says octave. So what I can do now, I can press maybe the octave on the oboe, and I'm going to take that down an octave, but I'm going to leave the strings as they are. So I've got nice high strings, but the oboe is still sounding correct because we've only altered the octave. If I was to use this upper octave down, the problem is it takes all the voices down. Although it doesn't show on there, what it's done, it's taken them both down an octave from where they were. So I tend to use this screen here. I think it's I love that on Genos. I think that's a really, really useful screen. I can balance, you know. I don't have to go back into my mixer. I can say, well, I'd like the strings a little bit louder than the oboe. And I'm going to send the strings to the left, and I'm going to send the oboe a little bit to the right. Now I can hear that in the headphones. I've now got some separation of the sound. I can see some effects down at the bottom, but the main thing I wanted to show you was how you can individually alter the octave. So if you've got 3 sections on, you can have them all at different octaves. And if you look, you can go 2 octaves either way, so you've got quite a nice range there. We've talked before about creating an octave piano. By the way, you see you can also access the sound list from that same screen, and that's why I think that screen is really so useful. So I've got 2 concert grands together. I'm going to take one and I'm going to take it down an octave. I'm going to take one and bring it up an octave. And we get that lovely rich octave piano. I could take this one down 2 octaves. It's so flexible, but yes, good question from the gentleman. I can't remember who it was, so apologies for that. But you can create so many nice effects by shifting octaves, and you can also make every sound work in the right place on the keyboard. That's probably the most important reason why you'll actually do it. Okay, I think I've got a couple more questions about Genos, but I'm gonna swap to this thing about the ensemble voices. They're not easy to use. I'm going to say that right from the outset. The principle is brilliant, but you've got to be a little bit careful. And I find some of the issue is this octave situation. Now, look, we've gone back to our home screen. If I was to just choose an ensemble voice in one of the sections, you'll see it will wipe all the other sections out and fill them with different voices. And you get a different looking screen. Let's do it. Let's go to right one. And we'll choose that. I hope, by the way, you're enjoying today. I'm sorry you're tired of my voice. This is the sort of webinar, and it was James who planted this seed that why don't every so often we just let people fire questions at us. But there's not going to be too much playing today, so apologies for that, but I hope you're finding the information useful. So I'm going to go in here and we go to our ensemble section. One I'm going to choose, just to show you, is Miller time. Okay, so I'll choose that. Now look at the different screen. It's actually one long rectangle. And we can see part 1, part 2, part 3. Rather than right 1, right 2, right 3 and left, we've just got it labelled as 4 different parts. The fact it's all joined together means it's all one sound. And what is quite clever is that it's taken the left part and it's now using it as a right hand part. Okay. How do I see what those voices are? Well, look, there's a little image of a mixer just up in the top right hand corner there. And this is great because, first of all, it shows you what it is. 4-part divide 1. And it shows you what voice is loaded into each part. Now, it does use a keyboard harmony, 4-way closed 3. And this is what I like about it. Look, if I just play a single note, it doesn't really sound anything different to if I'd just mixed 3 voices together on the right hand. And the interesting bit is the graphics. Hopefully you can see it on the big image of the screen. When I play a C, all those 4 parts are just playing a C. So what is ensemble about? As soon as I play my left hand and the keyboard harmony kicks in, have a look what happens. Oh, sorry, I didn't want the style on at that point, so... Now, look, I'm playing an E, but look at the orange notes in the screen. Sorry, I can't hold it on without playing it, and I don't want to talk over the noise. You'll see that each part is playing a different note, which actually in turn builds up a chord. So I'm actually playing an E7 chord there, and I'm playing an E at the top. So I've got a D, I've got a B, and a G sharp playing split across all those. So actually, it's forming a chord for me. But the difference is, if I just played that chord, normally every sound would be playing every note, but not when you use an ensemble voice. One sound, the clarinet, is only playing the top note. The second sax is playing the next note down, the B. The next sax is playing the G sharp. Okay, so we can do that. But look, I'm going to start playing, and Sue's preempted me here. In my headphones, this is getting so shrill, but that's where I need to play, because my music might come down too deep and it crosses the split point. So I want to start playing here, but everything's a little bit too high there. So do you remember when we went into the menu and we went into the sound setting, there was a tab called Tune? Well, there is here as well. And now we can see the octave for every section, just like we had before. So I'm actually going to take them all down 1 octave. There we go. Now, it isn't sort of clearing my ears out and making me wince, because it's now at the right octave. And something else that's really, really important on this screen is the tuning at the top. You know, when you get 4 instruments like this, I think we talked about this with the orchestra as well before. With the best will in the world, those 4 instruments are not going to be absolutely bang on tune. And the fact that they're not is what actually gives the character to the sound, and it's what makes it sound real. And you've got a chance here to slightly detune the sections. Now, don't go mad and put them that far out of tune that they really sound out of tune. Just go, you know, they've gone, that's actually +3, although it doesn't put the plus, the fact it hasn't got the minus sign. So you've got +3, +1, -1, -3. They're not drastically out of tune, but there's just enough detuning to make it sound real. So again, depends where you're playing on the keyboard. You can actually go in and you can actually change the octave. And look, you've got a save option. You can actually create your own ensemble voices that suit particular songs that you play. What's it? You can have a plan. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a difference between being slightly out of tune and wildly out of tune, where everybody's sort of fingers in ears, you know. But yeah, it's great because, you know, Yamaha have offered you something here that is unique. The other thing that can create a problem, and sadly this is just a problem that doesn't just apply to the Genos, it applies on the Korg as well, and that's using this keyboard harmony. Because sometimes, look, if I play the note first and then put my left hand down, I've got no chord. But if I've got that down first, now it's put the chord on the right hand. And sadly, we all do it. See, I just hit that note slightly before I played the chord. I'm exaggerating it, but imagine you just went. Now, when I change chord, it cancels the block chord up here. So you suddenly just end up with a single note again. So you've got to be so accurate, and actually you've got to try and put the chord change in slightly early, not a beat or a bar early, but just a fraction early. See, look, I'm not getting a chord now because I put that note down before I played the chord. There's some great things in ensemble, but you do have to adjust octaves. You might not need to adjust the octave of every voice. It might just be that one voice is going a little bit shrill there. But I have to say the harmony features on both, they do rely on accuracy. And Simon, you've said, well, if you change the chord fingering option, actually it doesn't make a difference. Unfortunately, it's just because the right hand needs those notes first to know what extra notes to put there. So it's the timing of when you play the chord and when you play the right hand. If you play the right hand first and then put the chord down, you just a thought. But if I just play the right hand first, doesn't matter what I do, I can't get that chord to come in. But experiment. There's some great sounds in there. There's band stuff, there's orchestral stuff, and as you've seen, you can actually save your own ensemble voices, and guess where they go? They go into the user section. Okay, we're getting towards the end of Genos 2 here. Yes, that was something that somebody asked me about half an hour or so before the webinar started. The fade in and fade out, and the time of the fade up. David, I'm glad that's cleared some things up for you. Even I'm getting tired of my own voice now, but while I just take a breather for 1 second. All of you good people that are on at the moment, we've got, I am going to book another webinar, by the way, for next week. I'm not sure what day it will be. I'm not sure what the content will be, but I will email you all, and just keep checking the site on YouTube. As soon as I know which day suits me the best, I'll pop it up there. The following week, we were going to do our Christmas one, and Andy was coming in. Andy's been on his luxury Caribbean cruise. It's all right for some. And unfortunately, he has a Yamaha reunion on Friday the 20th, which is when we were going to do it. So I'd love Andy to be with me on that one. So what we've done, we're going to rearrange it for Wednesday the 18th. So that will be the last webinar. So it's going to move from the 20th. Again, if you're on our subscribers list, I will email everybody with the updated dates. And again, just keep checking YouTube because I'm going to put a new link up tonight, and I hope that's okay for you. But yeah, Andy will be joining us, and we'll have a bit of fun and play some Christmas stuff for you and other stuff as well. But I wanted Andy with me, so that will be Wednesday the 18th, not the 20th. Okay, so fade in, fade out. As you know, when we went from Tyros to Genos, we lost the fade in, fade out button. But actually we didn't, because we now have assignable buttons, and on the Genos 2 we have more than ever in terms of assignable buttons. The fade in is actually one of the factory default settings, and the best way to see it is to use this direct access button. If you press direct access and then the function you want to actually look at, so we press any of the assignable buttons, it's great. It takes you straight to that menu. It saves going through the menu and going to a different page, etc. So again, direct access, really useful button. And I can see here, fade in, fade out is on button D at the moment. So that's there, that's where I've put it. I think by default it's probably on assignable button 2. I'm not sure because I've changed all mine, but I use D because it's the nearest button to me when I'm playing. And if you have a look down the bottom, there is your fade in time and fade out time. Now, this is a global feature. What do I mean by global feature? You can't set it individually on each registration. It is a global feature. So once I've set my fade in time and my fade out time, it will stay like that whenever I use it until such time I come in and change it. Now, I've got a 6-second fade in and I've got a 12-second fade out. You just really experiment and you know, decide what works for you best. Let's just choose a different style. Let's just go in here and we'll go something like jazz groove. So we're playing away. Let's turn the volume down just a minute while I talk to you. So I'm getting to the end and I don't want to use an ending, I just want to fade out. Press button D. And it fades out over the length of time that you have stipulated. So if I was to go in now and change that fade out time to 4 seconds, it's now going to disappear much, much quicker. Here we go. There you go, and it's gone. Okay, now, although you find the fade in, fade out under the style category, that's a little bit confusing because it does actually fade the right hand sound as well. It wouldn't be right if it just faded the style. So yep, fades the whole thing. So you set the fade in, fade out time and that will stay like that. And that's, you know, you don't actually have to save it, you just exit out of that screen and it's done it there. And final thing on Genos for today anyway, of course, is we don't have anymore a dedicated fill-in button. Yes, we have auto fill-in. Auto fill-in basically means if I change from one variation to the other, it would do a little fill, which is nice because it makes the change from one style to another a lot more musical. If I was playing away and I just press the same style I'm already on, it will give me a fill-in. I don't know whether you all appreciate that, but that's... So it's playing away. If I press button B again, and there's the fill, and it goes back onto the same style. That auto-fill also means if I change from, for instance, B to C, I will get the same fill-in that takes me across from one variation to the other. There we go. So it makes a nice musical transition. But there are different options on the fill-in, and we can assign them to assignable buttons again. So what I'm maybe going to do in E, because I don't want text viewer on mine, so I press that and I come back down to style and go a bit down further. I've got fill down, fill self, really, and the one I'm going to use is fill up. I'm going to close, and this is great because there's no saving to do. You just literally assign something to it and come out of it. Fill up now means if I press assignable button E, it will automatically go up through the variations but give you a little fill to take you in between them. Have a look. We're on variation A to B. Let's press it again. And it takes you up. Obviously, fill down will take you down through the variations, and fill self is what we did before. Instead of pressing the button there, you could press it on an assignable button. You could have 3 different fill-ins if you want. You could have fill up, fill down, and fill self. Excuse me. Beg my pardon. So yeah, you can make yourself dedicated fill-in buttons if you like. Okay, that it's taken about 5-10 minutes longer than I wanted it to, but as with the last webinar, if you can just give me a couple of minutes now, we're just going to put the Korg on, and hopefully some things relevant or that we talk about on the Korg will also still be relevant on Genos here. So excuse me for 1 second while I just frantically change all these settings over here. This is where all the cables go astray. There we go. And we'll move the Genos. Back with you shortly. There we go. Do you know, this is the most exercise I get all week doing this. David's just said, pity you can't have your camera equipment on a rig. It is actually, but it probably takes longer to reposition the camera, and then it's not directly overhead like we've got it here. And I think I said last time, my ideal scenario, and I'm still going to work on it, will be to have yet another camera above maybe the Korg in its other position. Then I can just swing round, but then I lose my face camera. That wouldn't be a bad thing, I know I can hear you saying, but there you go. So yeah, we're working on it all the time for you. Let's just make sure we've got some sound. Yes, we have. Okay, so Korg PA. There are some questions come in. I haven't seen all the comments, so I don't know whether James has put the links up yet for the Facebook pages. But please give it a visit and support it, because you know we all need the support, and it's he does some great things on the pages, and there's some like sub pages to it on certain products, so it's really good. And the reason we wanted James on as a guest is that we're going to do some webinars in conjunction with him as well, and we will get all that sorted out. We're getting there slowly but surely. Okay, Korg. I'm just going to begin by saying that I genuinely now, if you'd have asked me this 2 or 3 years ago, I'd have probably said, yeah, Korg, I prefer Korg. I've worked a lot with Genos, and I have to say it has my utmost respect now. It's an incredible keyboard, and they're both. I think we all wish we could have a combination of the two. It's probably never going to happen, but there are times when I prefer the Korg for certain things. There are times when I prefer the Genos for certain things. But what I do notice is how many people will say, "Oh, yeah, the Korg, it's different. I've had a Korg and it's different to the Yamaha." Well, yes, it is. But I don't think it's any different to when you go out and buy a different brand of car, and maybe the windscreen wiper is on the other side, and some of the controls are in a different place, and your electric window controls in the middle rather than at the side. Do you know there are so many similarities between these two keyboards? And that I just want to spend a couple of minutes just showing you. Look, a range of keyboards, the most common thing you're going to do is select a style, select a sound. Now, if you're a Genos owner, I just want you to watch this, not because I'm asking you to change your keyboard, I just want to prove the point. If I go into my keys menu here, this is a very, very similar to the home page on Genos. But things are in a different position. Our style is up at the top rather than down at the bottom here. We've got our row of upper 1, upper 2, upper 3. Genos call it right 1, right 2, right 3. They call it left voice, call it lower. So it's terminology that's different. We've got our pads. Now, they're on a grey panel here on Genos. They're across. The difference here is I can actually see what's in each of the 4 pads. And the one thing I do wish they had on Genos, if I dare say this, is on Korg, when we choose a style, I can immediately see the 4 one-touch settings. They call them keyboard sets. Again, it's terminology that's different, but these are our preset sounds to go with that particular rhythm. So if I was to change rhythm, look, straight away, I can see instantly what's on. I haven't got to work or guess what's going to be in those one-touch settings. So that's a feature I really, really like. Oh, camera's gone off on one. Oh, there you go. Looks like I've fallen off the table here. Let me go back to this camera. That was your fault, David, for saying I should have something that turns around. I don't know why it's done that. Let's see if we can readjust it. Why is it not doing it? Come on. Is it that one or is it? No, it's not that one. It's the other camera. Please bear with me. That's just decided to go off on one. Right, okay. Now you can see the mess in my studio. I won't worry about that. Okay, let's turn it back level again. This is going well. And drop it down a little bit more. How's that looking? That's not too bad. The easiest thing now is push the keyboard. Sorry, I don't know why that happened. Inexplicable. There we go. Close that down. There we go. So, yeah, we're back on normal now. And that's before I've had a whiskey. There we go. Okay, so yeah, we've got all our sounds along there. But yeah, what I was trying to say was we can see instantly what's in those one-touch settings. Do you remember me saying about mixer? Look, we've got a tab at the bottom. It says mixer, and we go into mixer. Exactly the same. When you choose a style on the Korg, you press style, and you've got your families of styles: country, Latin dance. Yeah, some of the names might be different, but it's the same principle as you've got on Genos. Then you've got your styles, then you've got your pages. You've got factory and user. It is no different. When you go into a sound, we have factory, we have legacy. You've got legacy section on Genos, you've got general MIDI, XG, and you've got user, which is where you store your user sounds. You've got your families, and you've got your sounds, and you've got the pages. So in terms of the things that we do the most, which is selecting a sound, selecting a style, and mixing it, actually there's no difference between either of them. But Korg introduced something here called keyboard sets. Now, I called these keyboard sets, that's what they are. And this is probably the biggest confusion on Korg keyboards for most people. Korg, in their infinite wisdom, labelled these lovely buttons over here: piano, electric piano, organ, guitar, strings, brass, trumpet. So people buy a PA5X and think, oh yeah, I have a guitar sound. So they go in and they choose guitars. And there are some lovely sounds in there, but they are not the individual voices. They might be an individual voice, and I'll explain that in a second. A keyboard set, what is it? I'm going to call it a registration. It's a complete sound setting or a registration. So it can be one voice, it can be a mixture of two voices, it can be a mixture of three, it can be two voices on the upper with one on the lower, it can have a split or not. It's a complete registration without the style data. And it's really, really useful. Now, on Yamaha, you have registration memories in the middle. On Korg, you have a thing called Songbook. Songbook is where you store all your settings for all your songs. But let me give you this scenario. It's great that we can save into registration memories, but say you've worked on a new string sound and you've layered 3 strings together and you've got a lower voice on, and you've done all the octaves, you've done all the fine balancing, you've done the reverbs, you've done the panning. It's probably taken you 15-20 minutes to put this sound together, and you store it in a registration. Well, that's great. Let's say a week later you want to use that sound again. So you've either got to make that sound up from scratch, will you get it exactly the same as before, or you've got to go to that registration and use that as your base and start changing it, put a different style with it, etc, etc. What you do on Korg, and this is something I think is a great feature, you mix your sounds together, you get it exactly as you want it, but ignore the style. You don't have to worry about the style there. And you then store it, and you store it in the keyboard set library. And guess what? There's a user bank. So let me do something very, very quickly. I've got a German grand piano here. Let's take the split off for a minute. Nice piano sound. In upper 2, I'm going to put some strings with it, ballad strings, and switch upper 2 on. That's better. I haven't got it running in stereo. There we go. Now, I'm going to go into my mixer. Do you remember we did this on Genos? And I'm just going to turn the strings down. Look, it's exactly the same. You press and you get the orange box around it. Exactly the same as on Genos. And I'm going to wind it down. Guess what? We've got our sliders, which we could alter the volumes here. So I've turned the volume of the strings down a little bit. I'm going to put a lower voice on and the split. And in my lower voice, I'm going to put something like, let's go into the choirs, and I'm just going to put, what shall we have? Choir light. That's fine. Okay, I'm not spending any time on this, but in principle, let's say we're happy with that sound. Just going to bring the volume of the choir up a little bit. So we've got it exactly as we want it. All I would do now is go to our little 3 lines at the top of the screen, save keyboard set. Okay, again, just like I said on Genos earlier, it won't let you save into the factory bank. So don't think you're going to lose any factory sounds. It will automatically guide you to user banks here. So I'm going to give it a name, and just so we can find it, I'm going to call it Webinar. Great name for a string sound. Okay, where am I going to save it? Well, ignore the fact I've got some of these labelled, but I'm going to go to user 8 because that's blank at the minute. So we've got a new sound, it's called Webinar, and it's going to be saved in user bank 8, save. That sound is now in my keyboard for me to recall and use with whatever style I want, whenever I want it. How would I find it? Go to any of the keyboard set library buttons here, go to user, And where was it? In user 8, just to prove, look, user 6 is blank, user 7, user 8, and there is my sound called webinar. If I was to just load a different sound for a minute, and I go to user 8 and I call it webinar, look, there's my piano and strings with choir in the left hand. That is a brilliant, brilliant feature, because when I'm playing on the fly and I've got a certain rhythm at a certain speed, I can bring any of these in whenever I want. And do you remember I said on Yamaha, great to change the one-touch setting? Well, guess what? You can go in here and you can change those 4, sometimes with the ones that you've created as well. So that is a brilliant feature. But I said about 10 minutes ago, that's not where you choose individual sounds. Where do we choose individual sounds? Well, pretty much the same as we do on Genos. We have a little picture and some text at the side of it. So German grand, and at the side is a picture of a little piano. We can do 2 things with this. I can switch a section on and off by pressing the picture, and that toggles between it being greyed out, so that section is off, switch it on, and it lights up in that sort of aqua green blue colour. Slightly different on the feed than it is live, but it's you can see what I'm getting at. If we press where the text is, now we're into our individual voices. So, you know, we've got 8 pages of piano there. If I go into legacy, we've got even more pianos in there, etc., etc. So this is where you select individual voices to then mix and match and build up your keyboard sets. So I hope that's made that clear. The other thing which is I think is really good on Korg, and I often hear people say, and this isn't a criticism, but people say, oh, it's ever so difficult to save things on a Korg. Well, everything you save goes into Songbook in terms of, let's call them registrations. And do you know what? You have to press one button to save something, really, and that is the book button. So let's say I've set up, I'm going into Latin, Sweet Bossa Nova. I'm happy with the 4 sounds, and I want to save this. But I'm going to alter the tempo a little bit. I'm going to take the tempo down. There we go. I'll change it to 104, so much slower than it was. How would I now save that so I can recall that? Well, I press and hold the book button. And when you've held it for a couple of seconds, this pop-up box comes up. Save songbook entry. Again, I can give it a name. Let's be creative again and call it webinar. Okay. Webinar. There we go. New songbook entry. Save. Are you sure? Yes. So all I had to do was press and hold the book button. If I just tap the book button and not hold it, it takes me into my songbook, and I can scroll through all my songbook entries. You can see I've been busy doing the Christmas stuff because that's all it's full of at the moment. So if I went on to something else, that would load the settings for that. If I go back to webinar, press exit, we've got our 4 sounds, and we're at tempo 104. Okay. All I want to show you, and I'm going to be brief about this, if you wanted to alter one of the sounds there, then you select sounds from your keyboard set library. And here's how we do it. We just tap the book button. And if you look at the bottom, it says edit or entry edit. So we press that. At the minute, we've got electric piano in number 1. That's fine. I'm going to press where it says electric piano, and I'm going to choose a totally different sound. I'm going to choose tenor saxophone. Okay. Now, where do I want that tenor sax to go? If you pull the menu down, look, I can send it to any of the 4 positions. So I might say, well, actually, I want it instead of the flugelhorn in number 2. So I've got my new sound, tenor jazz sax, go into flugelhorn, I go up to my 3 lines, which is where we always go to save things. Save book entry. Save. Are you sure? Yes. And look what's happened. We've now got electric piano, but I've got tenor jazz sax instead of flugelhorn, got nylon guitar, and I've got flute. Okay. Somebody said all of these keyboards need a message that periodically says take a break now. Yeah, I agree. Look, I'm going to probably keep you for another 20 minutes or so today, but I just want to go through these things. So what I've achieved now is very similar to what we did on the Genos earlier. I'm pointing over there. It's not even there. It's straight ahead of me. But we just changed the one-touch settings. We've done exactly the same here. They're just called different things, and we just go about it in slightly different way there. Okay, all I want to point out here is that when you first have a PA5X and you go to user in the keyboard sets, they will just be called user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4. You can actually rename them. And all you do is you tap on one, guess where you go, the little 3 lines at the top, and go to rename. And instead of user 2, you could call it my pianos or whatever. A little tip that I do, I look at the factory settings, and they are in a certain order. You can see the order on the buttons actually: piano, electric piano, organ, guitar, strings. So I always thought it would be nice if the user sections followed the same way. The problem is Korg put everything in alphabetical order, so it'll come out in a different order basically to what we said. So all I do is I prefix with the letter A, pianos, B, electric pianos, C, organ. Then it will come out in exactly the same order as the factory ones, and it means if I'm looking for a user guitar, I know if I go to guitar, it will, and I go from factory to user, I'm automatically in the guitar. Okay, so that's just a little tip to do that. Whether they're right or wrong to do this alphabetical order thing and not let you sort of put things wherever you want, that's open to debate, but there's always a way round it. Even when you're actually naming your sounds, you could actually prefix them with a letter, and when you've got to Z, you'll have to go back and put AA, or there is a way to do it, but yeah, I agree, it's not always ideal if you want to keep them if you want to keep them in non-alphabetical order. See what it's done, it puts numbers first, then it's put all the B's, then the C's. It would be nice if I could just put the ones I use the most on page 1, but what I do with those is just prefix them with letters there. Okay, James had a question in, and by the way, I'm sure you've probably read it more than I had, that he's put the links to the Facebook pages up there. And what James does is voluntary. So, I'm not plugging a business here and asking you to go and spend money. I'm just saying he puts a lot of time and effort into supporting these products. And what's nice now is that we can talk to each other. So if he's got a question he can't answer, he can always try me, and I'll say, no, I can't answer it either. But, we'll work together to help you all. That's what this is all about. Okay, so we've looked at the differences between keyboard sets, individual voices, how to change those things on there, and how to put something in the songbook. But James had a question about backing up. Now, backing up is important because all of these products are prone occasionally. Mine did it on the last webinar. They can lock up from time to time, same as your computer can lock up from time to time. I think we all expect them not to, but we have to be realistic and say, when you look at the amount of processing power that's in here, and we're continuously pressing buttons, very occasionally it's going to wave the white flag. It shouldn't do very often, I first to admit that, but they do occasionally. So if you do have to reset, and it's worse than that you lose some of your data, you need to have a backup to be able to put things back on there. I can only show you today on PA5X because that's all I've got in front of me. It is slightly different on the previous PA models, but if we want to back it all up, we go to File. And the first thing you do is swap between drives to internal. And it says all at the moment. Now, I could just back up one part by just pressing one part of it, but I'm going to exit from there for a minute. I'm going to back, I want to back everything up, to be honest. So let's exit out of there completely. So there we go. Let's go up. There we go. So we've got all selected there. When we're on internal, I can come up here and I can press save. Now you have to give it a destination. Now you will see in a minute I run 2 micro SD cards in my Korg because sadly for now, I hope they bring it back on an update, but you used to be able to load direct from a USB stick and you used to be able to create what they call direct files. You can't do that with PA5X. So what I do, we've got 2 micro SD card slots, and I think in total you can have up to 1 terabyte of storage, which is way over the top, but if you load samples and things like that. So I have everything ready to load rather than have everything stored in the keyboard. So I'm going to press my 3 dots. I'm going to actually store this on SD card 2. Okay, so we'll now come up here and it says create new .kst. KST is the file. That's the file format that we're saving. So I'm going to do that. And what I would normally do, and this is just a habit I get into, I put today's date. Because when I've got multiple backups, I can instantly work out which was the last backup. So I would call this 05/12/24. Okay. Okay. So we're now saving to SD card, and it's a file called 5/12/24.kst, and we press save. And away it goes, and it's busy saving. Now, I'm going to talk to you why that saves, because that will take a reasonable amount of time, but that has saved every single thing. Yes, it's in there. Simon, it may well be a question that applies to both keyboards. Is it possible to use a computer to look up where all the files are so they can be properly named? Yeah, with Korg, they have some separate software. There is PA Manager and Songbook Manager, which you can do all sorts of things. You can actually create new songbook entries using the software. Only runs on PC, not on Mac, unfortunately, and I'm all Mac, so I have to keep a PC just to run that. But yeah, brilliant bits of software that does enable you to go in and you can make adjustments without actually being in front of the keyboard, and you can name things, etc., etc. You can see this is chugging away. I probably do a backup once every couple of weeks, you know, and I do it at the end of the day. It doesn't take long. I am here backing everything up. Normally, I wouldn't have backed everything up. I'd probably just back my songbook, my styles, and my keyboard sets up. The main things where I've got user information, because that's the thing I don't want to lose. You see, it's loading sample data or saving sample data. Yeah. The manager, I can't think what it's called now, but yes, you're right. Genos have got their management program as well, so that's how they tend to do it. Some things you'll look at on a computer and you open a folder, you can't see it because your computer just doesn't recognize that sort of data that's in there. But yeah, hopefully that answers that. Okay, as soon as this is finished, we've got a couple of things left to look at. Another purchase required then. Yeah, short word, but it's simple, yes. No, so some of the software is free. The PA Manager is more expensive, but it is an incredibly powerful bit of kit. So, okay, look, we're almost there on that now. So, saving is important, and you'll see now. I can show you if I go into my drives. Look, I've got sets of styles ready to load, and that's why I keep them on the SD card. Is PA Manager the same as a DAW? No, it's not. PA Manager is purely, I mean, it now supports PA5X, and it supports all the models, so you let it know which model it is. You could put a stick in and you can see what style you've got on a particular songbook entry, what sounds you've got. You can go in and change it, you can rename everything, you can move things about, you can do all sorts of things with it. You can create pads. It's an amazing bit of software, but no, it's not a standard sort of sequencer, if you like. So look, I've got all these files ready to load. So I've got all the PA3X factory styles. So I could just press that and actually go up here and load them in. And then when I want something else, I'll load it. So that's as close as I can get to direct loading on here. But I've got a pretty large, I think it's a 512 SD card, and then I've got an even bigger one in the other slot. So anything I've got, whether it's sounds, styles, everything else, I store them all on the SD card so I can load them as and when I need them. Okay, couple of other things. Pads. This is something else I quite like, is that I can see exactly what's in each pad. How do we change what's in a pad? This was another question James had. It is as simple as, look, pad 1 has got groove drum 1 in it at the moment. I hit that and it's just like selecting a sound or a style. We have our categories. So I'm going to go to piano and I'm going to choose piano accompaniment 1, exit, and it's there. We've got it instantly. And you can go and you can change. And again, you can have different sets of pads with each style, with each songbook entry. And Yamaha, if you think about it, tend to do it in sets. With Korg, they do the pads separately. So there'd be nothing to stop me in pad 2 choosing something from the guitar bank. Remember, we put piano in, so I'll choose electric guitar strum. This is not relevant to the style, but I'm just showing you. You could have an orchestral one in here. You could have something else in here. Very, very flexible in that respect. The other thing you can do, if you go on to Mixer, if you look here, we have volumes for individual pads, and we also have little pictures of what sound is being used. Now, I have covered this on a webinar before, but I will just mention it briefly. Piano accompaniment 1. Let me change that. I'm going to choose an arpeggio for a minute. Piano arpeggio. There we go. So if I put... Oh, that's loud. Now, it will sync with the style and it will follow the chords that I'm playing. I like that pattern, but actually I didn't want it as a piano. Yes, I could go and I could choose a guitar arpeggio, but the guitar arpeggio might be a different pattern to that. I want that actual pattern, but I want it playing as a guitar. I just go into Mixer. Where it says pad 1 is using a German warm grand, I just press on the picture and I say, actually, you know what? I want you to use a classical guitar. So now when we press pad 1, So I'm not even stuck with the fact that it says it's a piano arpeggio. I could change that sound to anything I want to. I could put a pad sound in, I could put a synth sound in there. You can create some brilliant effects. And as Sue just rightly said, and I do this an awful lot, sometimes I will load 4 pads up and use that effectively as my style. Because it's that old adage of sometimes less is more. So, yeah, I mean, Sue's saying Korg has more scope. It probably is a little bit more flexible in things like that. But, and again, if you look back at previous sessions that we've done, we have showed you on Genos how you can mix and match individual pads and form your own pad up. It's probably a little bit quicker on here. And the amount you can revoice, and you know, if we go into the menu and we go into pads, look, I can eat. Oh, I don't know what this camera's up to at the moment. It's drunk completely today. Sorry about this, but we're almost there today. So let me see if I can just put it back to normal. Come on. No, it's almost like it's going into a sleep mode, isn't it? Sorry about this. You're probably going dizzy. I'll have to have a look. I've probably put a setting on there that I shouldn't have done. It's probably me. It normally is. Let's get it straight. Bring it back up. There we go. Okay, that's just going to have to do while we finish off. Okay, we are almost there. But look, yeah, on this mixer page here, for pads, I can set the volume, I can set the pan, I can alter the EQ of the pad. I can decide whether I want reverbs or additional effects on that pad. This is where the Korg probably does go a little bit more in depth, and you can probably see Korg's pedigree on high-tech instruments is where they've come from. It doesn't mean, and I mean this genuinely, it doesn't mean they're any more difficult to use. You just have to get your head round a slightly different system on there. And the final thing, before my camera plays up even more, is I just want to point out 2 things that people miss. There is a couple of padlocks on this main screen. You can probably see them on the big picture of the screen there. They basically mean if you've got a set of pads, you know, you might have a cymbal crash or the little bell tree that's nice, and you want to use those most of the time, you can set the 4 pads up and then literally put the padlock on. Then it doesn't matter. You can go off, you can choose a different songbook entry, you could choose a different style. Those 4 pads that you've chosen as your go-to pads that you use all the time, they're locked. The other thing you can do is you can stop it doing this. Look, when we load a new style, by default, same as on the Yamaha, it automatically loads what they think are 4 appropriate sounds to go with that style. So we change the style there. It's changed the sounds. We've now got banjo and a fiddle, whatever. Let's go back to our Latin one. I think it was Sweet Bossa Nova. And we've got electric piano. What if we wanted to keep that set of sounds, but we want a different rhythm? Well, this is where our padlock comes in. I've locked the sounds. Now I can go off to my country, soft country shuffle, and look, I've got the new style, but I've still got my 4 sounds. And I could then quickly save that as a songbook entry. And remember, that's dead easy. We just press and hold the book button. And I could save that. And all of a sudden, I've made a new songbook with that style and those 4 sounds that I wanted. Very quick way of making a new songbook entry. Now, don't know about you, but my throat's starting to hurt now. I've done too much talking today. But I really hope you've found that useful and it hasn't been too boring. I don't think it has, because the number of people we've kept all through the webinar has remained pretty constant. So, yeah, Keith, I haven't forgotten you. I actually started work on it this morning, so I'll talk to you before the end of the week on that one. yeah, I hope I've explained things in the right way. I always try and use terminology that people can understand. As always, thank you. 50 people on at the minute. We had some lovely comments. Thanks for James for trying to join me today, even though he wasn't able to. Please look out for next week's webinar. I will fix that camera by hook or by crook, or it's going through the window. And we'll have something next week. So just keep a check on YouTube, keep a check on your emails, and then Andy's Christmas one with me will be on Wednesday the 18th. But I will notify you, and I'll mention it again next week. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Bye for now. Bye everyone.